the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia, and now also the co-host of a new podcast, 100% Hockey with Darren Millard and our friend John Shannon. Congratulations, my friend. How are you?
That commute to Vegas is going to be a bitch, though. How often are you going?
Somebody has to do it, Blake. Somebody
right.
has to do it.
Right.
No, it's going to be exciting. We've been working on this for a little while now. We still have a few partners to put to bed, but we will launch on Monday, the 16th of December, which is 6 days from now, and we're excited. And quite frankly, guys, it's going to be a lot of the similar format we had on the last podcast, and we're going to get a lot of really solid NHL guests and media guys within the hockey world to discuss what's going on a 3 times a week basis in the National Hockey League.
Nice. Very well done. Well, we look forward to that, and we look forward to what you're going to be able to mine on that show, and that we're going to be able to talk about here on Secure Some Price on your weekly hits.
You guys were always very good to us on the previous show, so we're happy to share and happy to discuss anything that is pertinent to people in the province.
Yeah, well, good to be in the same sandbox with you still, Mr. Shannon. We'll start with Thatcher Demco here. What do you think a realistic expectation for Thatcher Demco's season looks like after missing all of this time?
Well, it's funny that discussion came up yesterday with me with a couple of people, and the answer was, well, he's backed up and now he's going to play, and can he stay healthy? So the expectation isn't as much statistically as it is physically. And we know from his history that Thatcher Demco tends to push himself beyond his own boundaries. And that is going to be something that hopefully he has learned to manage in order to try to stay healthy in the long term for this hockey club. That to me is knowing your limitations. And it certainly sounds like in the discussions that he's had very publicly since first coming out and telling us about the injury, that he seems to understand that more. We all, professional athletes, guys, you've seen this, you've seen it firsthand. They always push themselves beyond the border. And so learning how to do that and when to do that, particularly in the goaltender position in the National Hockey League, is something that comes at a time for Demko that you have to, this is career concerning now for him in this scenario. So let's just hope, rather than wins and losses, rather than goals against average, rather than save percentage, we're dealing about a player that can stay healthy as opposed to worry about the numbers.
Yeah. Are you confident he can get back to being that Vezina level guy, John?
I am. Yeah, I am. I mean, the Vezina level stuff to me, the award-winning stuff to me is between the ears. Can he be focused? Yes, he can be focused. We've seen that. The question becomes has he learned not to be as acrobatic and as efficient? And so that becomes the big challenge for him at his age, at a point in his career where this franchise is relying on him big time.
How would you use him? When he comes back, what would be the organization's appetite to see him in these, let's say, the first month?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I'd ever play him in back-to-back games, even if there were 3 days between games. And the reason you do that is because Kevin Lankinen has done a fantastic job for the hockey clubs. You can ease Demko back into these situations. It's not a case of what you see with Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg when the decision's made of who's going to play. Connor Hellebuck seems to make the decision. This is one that has to be by committee. I'm sure that Patrick and Jim want to say in it. Rick Tocchet wants to say in it. The goaltending committee wants to say in it. This is not just on Thatcher to say, I'm ready to play. This is one where I think you can ease him into it, Blake, and suggest that, okay, listen, let's, for the first, 3 or 4 weeks and until the new year, let's play a once a week and see what happens. And because, Lankinen has done a good enough job to get them through this stint of time that allows them to do this and has allowed them not to force Demko back early before he's 100%.
And of course, on top of Kevin Lankinen, the other great thing they have going for them, and it's proven out via the stats and the analytics through nearly a third of the season here this year, John, is this is a club that continues to play terrific team defense. All 5 skaters, good assignment, good detail. Yeah. The transformation has been just remarkable because they were anything but that at the end of the Boudreau era. And now that is very much their identity. That is very much their fallback. That is very much, their underpinning of success.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was with Jim Rutherford in Pittsburgh last week, and we ended up talking about a few things, including all the JT Miller noise. But one of the things he talked about was the learning curve for this team this year. Thinking that the team was going to feel that it was easy to win this year after what they learned in the playoffs last year. But the one part that they did learn was team defense. There are other aspects that I think that everyone felt that they needed to improve on, but team defense was one of those ones that was accentuated in the success story. Winning at home might be the other one. That is the huge discussion point. Certainly, there's a lot of positives to be brought out. Lankinen and the team defense are 2 at the top of the list.
Of course, Demko's return not the only one on the minds of Canucks fans as JT Miller makes an appearance at the game day skate. Won't be playing just yet, but expected to fully practice with the team tomorrow before he maybe jumps into action at the end of the week. Whether that's Thursday or the weekend, we'll find out. But both of those are options now for JT Miller. All of this is fabulous news for management that may get a little bit of a stay of execution, if you will, on having to pull off a trade here to try and salvage their top spot. Not a playoff spot, but if they want to stay sort of in the mix for a division title and for a top 3 spot, they've got to be careful here that they don't slip too far. But these 2 reinsertions into the lineup certainly help things, don't they?
They do. And eventually the Miller return is something that is not just one from a strategic point of view, but certainly an emotional charge that I think will help as well. This was a team that last year didn't face many issues, whether it be guys out of the lineup or injuries. And they have fought through a few of those injuries this year when you think about Demko and Philip Hronek. Going through what he's going through. So you're right. I think that there are so many positives that are going on with the hockey club. Even though you'd look on paper and say, Elias Pettersson can be better. Are we getting, the Dakota Joshua's return? Is he back at a level where you're happy with him? There's lots of stories that are going on, I think, Blake, that you look and say, and I do believe this from an organizational perspective. I think there's a great deal of patience with management, with this group of players. And a lot of the stories that were up there, certainly knocking on doors is one thing, but willing to make a big change at this point, I don't think was ever really on the docket.
Since you were with Rutherford, because last week he certainly made a headline. He was upset at the speculation on Miller's situation, not that we started to hear JT Miller's name in trade rumors. Is that fair? Is that what you heard last week?
The one word that came out of my conversation with Jim was loyalty. He believes in loyalty. He believes that JT Miller has been loyal to the organization, and in return, the organization needs to be loyal to JT Miller. So in fairness to all the noise that was going on, he felt he needed to say something to Patrick, and wanted to get that message out there. So from that perspective, it was very much an old school response from the president of the hockey club to say, guys, we're dealing with a person here. We're not dealing with a commodity. Let's just call a spade a shovel and make sure everybody understands that JT Miller is a Vancouver Canuck.
Did he say anything about Besser and Besser's extension?
You know what? I did not. It was not supposed to be it was a happenstance meeting. We were both there for the United States Hockey Hall of Fame event in Pittsburgh, which, by the way, was Jimmy's first time back in Pittsburgh since he'd left the organization.
We heard,
which was fascinating. But it was more of a social conversation more than anything about how we're doing.
You didn't interrogate him, Shannon? You had all that time. You didn't interrogate him?
We were having too much. You know what? We were having too much fun. We were actually having too much fun. There are days to be journalists, and there are days to be fun-seeking
cocktail party guests. Yeah. I know which one you choose.
Well, it was 10 in the morning. I'm not sure how many cocktails.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I suppose not. Although we are at the time of year where you can get away with that. Put your journalist hat back on for me. The story from Jonas Siegel down the I-5 here, the YYZ Sports Media blog, that Bell Media might be considering selling TSN, might be looking to sort of run home to mama and what they do at their core and not necessarily media. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I am told that there is some truth to the story. So Jonah's got great sources. I haven't talked to Jonah since it came out. There is some logic to it when you consider what Bell is going through and how they're trying to streamline certain scenarios. It would be shocking, though, in essence, because Bell has been a very good owner for TSN, and they've done a very good job with sports television in our country. So to me, the shift, the ever-changing shift in the media world in our country, well, in the United States for that matter too, is a fascinating one to watch. I don't have anything to add other than, you know darn well there are a lot of people within the TSN walls that are wondering what the heck is going on, and it's at a time of year when TSN is at its pinnacle when you consider the Grey Cup in Vancouver and the World Junior Hockey Championships coming up in Ottawa. So to me, it's a fascinating story. And then you ask the question, okay, if Bell doesn't do it and Rogers owns the other guy, who
would buy it?
And
like, who's even on that list? Who's even eligible here, John?
That is, and you know, because Shaw just sold for $29 billion to Rogers.
Yep.
Chorus is in huge trouble. Unless there's
tell us and only tell us.
Tell us the only, in the game here.
Well, now, just remember, guys, maybe we got blinders on here because we've gone through a phase of these things where right now the telcos are owning media, but is there another sector of the business community that might enjoy being in the broadcast world if they can make financial sense of it? We went through phases. I mean, hey, listen, I worked for a company that ran Hockey Night in Canada for years and years, and it was basically owned by a brewery. TSN was started by a brewery. We went from breweries to banks to telcos. Now, is there another group out there, another company out there that says, hey, listen, we want to play in that sandbox. That's kind of cool. And make money at it. Make no mistake about it. TSN makes money and makes good money for Bell at this point, which is one of the reasons why I'm always surprised when these kind of stories come up, unless they think they can make so much money out of it, get out of their own debt issues.
So a couple of things there. You're quite right to speculate about other sectors, and you're right. It is so foreign right now, but once upon a time there were other sectors in the broadcast industry. Number two, it's not empty pipes from TELUS, but they haven't exactly been a big content farm
No.
traditionally. And then when you talk about TSN making money, they do minus massive NHL national rights fees, John. But as Jonah notes in his piece, therein lies the rub, right? Like, if you're getting into TSN now, are you getting into it for what would be an awful lot of money, just the price of acquisition, and then a second significant chunk of money if you feel like you have to be back in the NHL national rights game?
And I would have told you prior to Jonah's story that there was an appetite there. They were, they have been, behind the scenes and very informally talking to people about, the future. Now, Rogers has their exclusive window with the NHL starting January 1st for 60 days. But I can tell you that Edward Rogers has already been to New York once. And yesterday at the Board of Governors meeting, Canadian TV rights and the future of Canadian television was high on the agenda. So from that perspective, it is a fascinating time to be thinking of new ownership. But until the new ownership comes, I think TSN and Bell have to have business as usual. And if they have an opportunity to buy at least a portion of the national rights package, they would be wise to. 10 years ago, we laughed at Rogers, spending all this money. And basically what they did was, because they owned the summertime with the Blue Jays, they also became, on a regular basis, to own the wintertime, which is something that nobody ever imagined would happen, that TSN would be pushed off its pedestal as number one. And Rogers have done a good job of doing that through those two key sports entities, Major League Baseball and the National Hockey.
Yeah.
What are the chances of a
Did
streamer
make the money, though?
What are the chances of a streamer buying them? Maybe not a big streamer, maybe not Amazon, but what about DAZN or Media Pro or somebody like that?
Well, Media Pro's leaving the country, right? Media Pro's getting out of the country. So they're walking away at some point, I think. Amazon's going to have an appetite for a portion of it. They already have an appetite. They're very happy with what's going on in their Monday night packages. Not only are they having pretty good ratings, but the demographic of the ratings is perfect for them. People under the age of 30 are watching on streaming services, which is what advertisers want to buy into. So that's a real positive. So I've always believed that the next Canadian rights deal, which would be, north of $600 million a year, would be split in three: Bell, Rogers, and a streaming service. And, once Amazon did the deal with Rogers, I figured that Amazon would be that streaming service.
Yeah. Part of that Jonas Siegel story was also that Rogers may look at shuttering the Fan 590, or at least as a radio station, and just basically put podcasts up in its place. I mean, my first instinct was, gosh, if the Fan 590 and all its history in Toronto can't make it as a sports talk radio station, what chance does anybody else have? But take on that part of the report as well. What do you know there? What do you see for the future of terrestrial sports talk radio?
Well, I think that, AM radio still has a place. It still has a place. But at the same time, I think Rogers have been ahead of the curve in building podcasts through their AM radio content. They've done a pretty good job. When you think, from the days after McCowan left, using when Eric was there on the noon show, they had a basketball show. Kyprios and his show has been very good as a podcast. So they're basically doing now. The one thing I was always told is that the original radio station and the loyalty of the radio station was Edward Rogers paying tribute to his father, and that he would never abandon AM radio because his father's love of AM radio. And when you look at the cost of it from a corporate perspective, it's a drop in the bucket for Rogers. And in order to try to keep Ted Rogers' legacy alive, would Edward Rogers say, no, we're going to stay on this course, and we're going to have radio as long as I'm in charge of Rogers.
Marvelous stuff, John. You made us smarter again this week. And we, once again, a hearty congratulations on the new show, 100% Hockey. Darren Millard, John Shannon, starting on Monday. And we'll catch up with you next Tuesday, buddy. Thanks for this.
Cheers, boys.